Hello, my name is Malcolm Skinner and I'm a solicitor in the LexisNexis PSL Private Client team. Today I'm joined by Olivia O'Sullivan, a director at PwC, who is going to take us through some of the announcements in the 2016 Autumn Statement. Olivia, welcome.
Thank you.
So what were the big announcements for individuals in the Autumn Statement?
Well, there weren't any really. So many items had been pre-announced or were already expected. There was very little that was actually new. One area where there is a lot of interest on the personal tax front at the moment is in relation to the taxation of non-doms. There are some quite big changes coming in from next April, but there were no new announcements on that beyond confirmation that the changes would go ahead from next April.
Right, so no new announcements. We anticipate that they will come into force. What, basically, and in summary, are those changes going to be?
Well, at the moment, the position, if you are somebody who is UK domiciled and resident in the UK, you're subject to UK tax on a worldwide basis as it arises. If you are non-dom, by contrast, you can elect for something called the remittance basis of taxation. And what this means is that you can keep your non-UK income and non-UK gains outside the scope of UK tax unless you remit them or bring them into the UK. And the longer you've been resident in the UK, the more difficult it is to access that treatment. You might need to pay an annual remittance basis charge, for example. What's going to change from next April is that anybody who is a long-term resident, so who's been here for 15 out of the previous 20 tax years, will be treated as deemed domiciled for all tax purposes: income tax, capital gains tax, and inheritance tax. So essentially they'll be treated in the same way as somebody who is UK domiciled.
Right. Okay, I assume we're not anticipating any changes to that in the finance bill?
Sadly not. There had been some speculation that the changes might be postponed, but I think that might have been wishful thinking on the part of some non-doms.
Yes, could well be. So what about other individuals? What have we got there for them?
In terms of the non-dom changes?
No, in terms of employees, for instance.
So there were some announcements in relation to employees. One of them was in relation to salary sacrifice arrangements. Salary sacrifice arrangement essentially involves an employee having a choice to either take a higher salary or a lower salary and then get some sort of benefit to make up for that. And under these arrangements, there is a national insurance saving for both employer and employee, and potentially an income tax saving for the employee if the benefit that they receive has got a lower tax value than the salary foregone. The Revenue have been consulting on these, and they've decided that that tax relief is going to be scrapped from next April.
Surprise, surprise.
There will be some exemptions. So if you've got a salary sacrifice arrangement and it relates to pensions or childcare or the Cycle to Work scheme or ultra low emissions cars, that will be preserved.
Right, and they're going to be protected until April 2018, is that right?
Yes.
That's right, okay. Employee shareholder status, there was a reference, an announcement relating to that. Where does that leave us there now with those arrangements?
Yeah, so employee shareholder status is essentially an arrangement whereby an employee gives up certain employment rights, and in return they can acquire shares in their employer, which are then tax-free when they dispose of them, up to a limit of £100,000 at the moment.
Right.
So when they get the shares, they may be income tax and national insurance at that point, but the first 2,000 of shares awarded to the employee is exempt from that. The Revenue have announced that any shares issued under that scheme from the 1st of December, i.e. from yesterday, will no longer qualify for that relief, although existing share awards will still qualify.
Not doing very well so far, are we? What else for employees? Anything of interest?
Not really. The employer and employee national insurance weekly threshold is going to be aligned at £157 per week, which is not terribly exciting.
No, not at all. As we've already said, the announcements in relation to non-dom changes will go ahead with effect from the 6th of April 2017.
Yeah.
The confirmation seems to beg the question that maybe there was a possibility they wouldn't go ahead.
Well, I think that was because these rules were announced, or the proposal to change the rules on non-doms was announced in the summer budget of 2015. So that was way back in July 2015. The rules are intended to take effect from next April, but notwithstanding that, there's still quite a lot of lack of clarity with regard to some of the detail. I mean, there are some things that we know. So, for example, the fact that somebody who's been here for 15 out of 20 tax years will be deemed domiciled. Somebody who was born in the UK with a UK domicile of origin, but who since perhaps moved abroad, acquired a domicile somewhere else, as soon as that individual returns to the UK, they will also be deemed domiciled for all tax purposes.
Right.
There are some measures being introduced to try and soften the blow of the changes, if you like.
Right.
So one of those is in relation to asset rebasing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're becoming deemed domiciled under the 15 out of 20 year rule, any non-UK assets that you have at April 17 can be rebased to their market value at that date. So that if you dispose of those assets following the changes, you'll be subject to capital gains tax in the UK, but only on the growth in value since April 17.
Right.
So that's quite good.
That's quite good.
Yeah.
Yep. Something.
There are other reliefs. So there will be an opportunity for any non-dom, apart from the ones who are born in the UK, to rearrange their offshore bank accounts. So at the moment, if you are a non-dom and you've got an offshore bank account and it contains a mixture of items, so maybe some income, maybe some capital gains, maybe some clean capital, and you make a remittance from that into the UK, broadly, you are deemed to be bringing in the highest taxed item first. So the income would come in first, then the capital gains, then anything that's not taxable. So if you've mixed up your bank accounts offshore, there's not really a huge amount you can do about it at the moment. But what this will allow people to do is they'll have a 1 year window of opportunity essentially when they can strip things out of their offshore bank accounts, assuming that they can identify the component parts. And they can put, for example, income into one account, capital gains into another account, and then they can choose which account to remit from and when. So that's actually something that's very welcome.
Sounds good. As we've said, we've got a finance bill coming out next week.
Yes.
So we might be back again talking about this a little later on. Maybe there'll be changes in that bill, but
indeed we might.
But presumably we don't know anything really.
Well, we know the general direction of travel, and there are some areas where we're waiting for some more detail.
Right.
So, for example, another change is that if you've got UK residential property and it's held through any kind of offshore structure, from next April, that will be treated as transparent for inheritance tax purposes. We don't have a huge amount of detail on how those changes are going to be implemented, so we're looking forward to finding out.
Don't know if looking forward is the correct phrase, but watch this space perhaps.
Watch this space.
Excellent. Olivia, thank you so much for this.
A pleasure.
Thank you.